a few more minutes.
Oh, no.
Oh, I was muted. Being as we were talking techno stuff, can somebody remind me how to blur the background?
If you go to device settings, I think it is, and then video, maybe not.
Device settings.
There, show device settings.
So where there's the little three dots, is that on the bottom of your screen? Do you have the little strip at the bottom of your screen?
Yeah.
It has okay, so the three dots, click on that for more actions.
Right.
And then go to show background effects.
There you go. Yeah.
Unblock.
And then you can click on the one that'll blur it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peggy.
Absolutely.
Okay, I think we're getting pretty close. We could start out by doing some welcomes and introductions. And also I'd ask that everybody try to remember to mute your, so we don't get background feedback, because we've had a couple of them here recently that had quite a bit of feedback problems. Let's see, I could go down the participant list alphabetically, I guess, because I have it on the right here. Barbara?
Good morning, Barbara McLaughlin. I live in Bayside Gardens. I'm North County rep and on the outreach committee.
Candy, are you there? On the phone?
Oh, did you not receive the agenda when I sent it out? Maybe you're not on there.
We have a guest, Daniel.
Aha.
Oh, you muted, Daniel.
I can go ahead and send that to you directly right now. I think I have your email. Let me make sure.
My name is Daniel Howlett. I live in Rockaway Beach, and I own a multifamily property.
Is it with a building or vacant?
It's a side-by-side duplex, and I've got the other side long-term rented.
Hey, let's have a chair here. Thank you. Darren, a guest?
Sure. Hello, everybody. Darren Murphy. Just kind of listening in. I'm still working on a conceptual project for some land I own in Bayside Gardens. So thanks for having me.
Great. Let's see, another guest, Elizabeth Whipman.
Hi, yeah, I'm Elizabeth. I'm the volunteer coordinator at Tillamook County Habitat for Humanity and an Oceanside resident.
With a dog.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
It's very topical today.
Yeah, mine's out right now on a walk. Commissioner Scar.
Good morning. I'm Erin Scar, and I'm a Tillamook County Commissioner, and I'm liaison to this group.
Gail.
Hi, I'm Gail Uzel. I'm Far South County rep, and I chair the outreach and the development code subcommittees.
And another guest, Jeff. Okay, I see you down there, Jeff. We'll catch up with you a little bit. Michelle.
Michelle Yank, Community Wellbeing Director for Adventist Health Tillamook, and in that capacity, I serve as a large employer representative on the council or on the commission, and I serve on the outreach subcommittee as well.
Okay, Commissioner, John Maine.
Hi, John Maine. Sorry I'm a little late. I had to take kids to school this morning. John Main, retired contractor, member of the Planning Commission, or Housing Commission, excuse me.
Okay, Carrie.
Hi, good morning. I'm Carrie Fleischer, member at large, chair of the Legislative Committee, and a Rockaway Beach resident.
Chris?
Hey, good morning. I'm Chris Blockenmeyer. I'm a major employer representative. Have a position on the Tillamook School Board.
Okay. Kristen, I saw you on. Kristen, I saw you on earlier.
I was talking away without the mic. Hi, everybody. I'm Kristen Koptiuk. I'm a cultural anthropologist, at-large rep on the Development Code Committee and the Outreach Committee. Live in Rockaway.
Okay, and from the city of Tillamook, Megan.
Good morning, Megan Carpenter, planning tech for the city of Tillamook.
Peggy, a guest. Okay, we have one of our presenters, Peter Starkey.
Hi, Ed. Good morning, Peter Starkey, Executive Director at CARE. Here to present to you all on the wonderful topic that you all have probably questions about with our assisted living properties, Kilchis and Nehalem Bay, and their closure, to provide you an update.
Appreciate it. Shannon?
Good morning, everyone. Shannon Wakeman. I'm a member at large. I work at the Tillamook County Transportation District, and I'm a Chamber of Commerce board member.
Okay, and TJ was on earlier. Are you back, TJ? Okay, Tim Borman's on, and he's presenting today. Tim?
Good morning, all. Tim Borman, live in Bay City. I'm the liaison between Tillamook County Housing Commission and Northwest Oregon Housing Authority.
Okay, Tom?
Tom Jared, Central County member at large, and I'm a member of the Development Code Subcommittee.
Valerie?
I'm a housing commissioner at large, principal real estate broker for Berkshire Hathaway out of Garibaldi.
All right, and there was one that said meeting guest, just MG, so that's if you want to say hi, that's great. I don't know who you are. Okay.
And Ed, very briefly, I was trying to get to my unmute button. I wanted to let you know I am back. Good morning, everybody. I'm TJ Fiorelli. I'm the housing coordinator for Tillamook County.
Good. Boy, once we meet in person, we're going to need a pretty good-sized meeting room. We're getting a good crowd there. It's really great. Okay, mission minute of positive things that are going on in our community. Anybody have anything?
Sorry, this is Miss Carlson Swanson. I just wanted to let you know that I'm here on the phone at the moment. I'm a member of a nonprofit representative.
Oh, thank you, Miss. Thank you. Mission minute? Well, we had the news on the approval of the apartment building in Tillamook, the 46-unit apartment building, and I think that's a positive thing for the community.
Yes, Ed, I can say that we received in the office our confirmation from the city of Tillamook that the City Council of Tillamook has upheld the decision of the Planning Commission to approve the site plan as it was presented to the Planning Commission. And so we're very excited about that. It's possible that the decision could be appealed to the Land Use Board of Appeals at the state of Oregon. However, things are looking very promising right now.
Great. Okay, Tim, you were going to do a NOAA update for us?
Thanks, Ed. This will be quick. After a few conversations as such, we've coordinated a regular monthly meeting for the executive director of Tillamook County Housing Commission, TJ, to meet with the executive director of Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, Jim Evans, We've had one formal meeting thus far in January, and we have another meeting, I believe, scheduled for a week from tomorrow. Is that right, TJ? And that's all I have to report at this point.
That is correct,
All right.
Tim. Thank you.
You're pretty brief there, Tim. Thank you.
Try.
Okay, I guess, Peter, do you want to do your presentation? And I just would mention that he may solicit some ideas for where he goes. We'll have a little time for that, but he also will, you could email him or we'll have a chat down below that he could look at later. So Peter, go ahead.
Thank you, Ed. So hello, everybody. This is my first time presenting to the Housing Commission. It's so exciting, but also coming with not so exciting news. As I'm sure all of you have heard, we've unfortunately, after over 25 years of owning or operating assisted living facilities in Tillamook, we unfortunately had to announce in December that just wasn't going to be able to sustain itself, just given the realities of COVID and the lagging Medicaid reimbursement. Our facilities had anywhere from 70 to 90% Medicaid residents. Before we operated them and we had a management company, that was 30%, and a lot of private pay corporate assisted living facilities will actually have less than 10% of their population be Medicaid. To give you, and this is something I learned from Commissioner Scar, when she was talking about this, the Medicaid rate hovers around $3,500. A private pay rate at a corporate organization, you're looking at least $8,000 to $10,000, if not above that, per month. So that just gives an idea of just some background for you all, of just the financial difficulty of being able to operate in general. But then also with the additional expenses of COVID, our staffing costs went up by 238%. And unfortunately, none of the programs from the federal or state government when it comes to stimulus qualifies, because you have to show a loss of revenue, not an increase in expenses. So some background on that. As of today, 53 of our 56 residents have been either placed or relocated already. We were able to place a handful of people in Tillamook County, but many of our residents decided to move inland or up and down the coast for a variety of reasons, including being closer to family. Several of our residents also chose to be closer to their medical teams. And then a fairly large portion of our population also qualified for skilled nursing or memory care as well. So really, our residents went all over the coast, and then some of them also went inland and went to a higher elevated level of care as well. I'm just looking at my notes that I wanted to go through with all of you. So there's been a lot of speculation about what comes next for care at these two properties. And our board, the care board, has wrestled with this question since they made the decision to close. This wasn't something that was really in the back of our heads when making this decision. We made the decision to close the facilities, or the board made the decision with no intent of what we were going to do with these facilities. The focus was 100% on the residents, on what was best for them, and whether we were able to provide the best level of care and the safety that they trust us. So I just want to put out there that any sort of rumors that CARE wanted to close these is not the case. So the CARE Board of Directors is committed and dedicated to ensuring that CARE Social Services as well remains a vibrant part of our community and a leader in that charge against poverty and the effects of poverty and homelessness in the region. So while social services programs have benefited from some unrestricted income that comes from the assisted livings, it's not going to mean that CARE is going anywhere. So I just want to put that out as well, that CARE is here to stay and continue doing the good work of tackling problems like housing, like homelessness, and to continue being a partner with all of you as well. So what are we doing with the properties then? And that's a complicated question that I get asked very frequently. The CARE Board of Directors really wants to see these continue to be a community asset. And since we had no intent of closing these for an alternative use, we've always been open to how to proceed with continuing to have these facilities be in the community benefit. That does not mean, however, that CARE will necessarily be retaining possession of these properties. And there is a reasonable chance that CARE will need to sell at least one of these buildings. When it comes to what to do next, the CARE Board of Directors, when faced with the decision of continuing to draw from our reserves for the houses, is not in a position right now to be able to fund something ourselves. We don't have $1 million in the bank to say, ooh, let's make Kilch's House into X, or let's make Nehalem Bay House into Y. It really means that any proposals or ideas that are coming to us have to be with a pretty solid plan, have to have money behind them as well, and the ability to sustain that type of program too. Specifically at Nehalem Bay House, Nehalem Bay House has a mortgage that is in the millions. So we don't have the ability to just pay that off and be able to go right into using it for whatever the community might need. So with that property, really, our options are to look for someone to either assume that property and preserve it so that it can be in a place where it can benefit the community, or a plan from an affordable housing developer or another nonprofit to be able to come in and invest those types of funds. Kilch's House does present a few more options because there is a lesser mortgage, and there is interest and ideas out there of how that space can be used as a community benefit as well. And that's something that the CARE Board is just sort of starting the process of how are we going to solicit those ideas, how are we going to process them, how are we going to involve our wider community in determining what are the priorities of what these buildings should look like if one is able to remain in CARE's hands as well. Any questions so far?
I have a quick question. I know you said a lot of it's kind of up in the air right now, but has the use of one of the buildings as a crisis home been considered?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Just curious.
Yes, we've had a lot of different ideas coming forward that are all really great options for the community and highlight all of the different priority areas that we've been talking about and studying for years now. And it's really great to see the creativity and the enthusiasm that's been coming about how to tackle some other problems that exist in the community as well. Any other questions currently?
I just have a comment or a suggestion, because it will be hard to prioritize, and I know you're probably under a bit of a time constraint because the longer you sit on the property without doing anything with it, and in the likely position that you're in, that's not an ideal scenario. There is a triennial every 3 years. Our county partners, including Adventist Health and Public Health, and Tillamook Family Counseling Center and Reinhardt Clinic and the Columbia Pacific CCO, we're all obligated to perform a community health needs assessment. And it just so happens that this cycle is in play right now, and we have been in a data gathering stage that will culminate in an April presentation of all of the primary and secondary data that has been collected for this current state that we're in. And from that, there is a steering committee and some of the members of whom are on this body. They will be prioritizing the key community health needs, in part by readiness, resource availability, et cetera. For, there's a lot of different things that are, in crisis mode in the county, and we could be working on we can't be working on all of them. I guess that's the point. And collectively, if we work together on something, we stand a better chance of making significant impact, as you can see through this body. So I just want to say, I don't have a crystal ball, but housing and homelessness was on the last community health needs assessment as the number one theme of prioritized need. Anecdotally, from participating, I think that it will be elevated even higher for this cycle. And the other one is opioid use response. And so that's just a precursor. I think once the data is presented and those community stakeholders work on that prioritization, that could give your care board some guidance and direction on where there's maybe the greatest potential for use of those facilities.
Awesome. Thank you, Michelle.
Any other questions? Our own Tom Jarrett is on the care board and keeps his eye on housing issues for us. Any other questions? Again, TJ, were you going to put the email address or for Peter, or I guess this group probably already can get that fairly easily if you have a comment or a question to send to him.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ed. I appreciate, Peter, you being here today, and I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to everybody directly. We've received a lot of questions and concerns and comments through the Housing Commission email and also through my office. So this is really wonderful to provide some clarity again, as Michelle so clearly put it. Nobody has a crystal ball, and I think Peter and Kara are doing a phenomenal job dealing with this very challenging situation. Peter, I do have your contact information I've prepared. Would you like me to share that on the screen so that folks know who to contact and where to go with those questions? I'll go ahead and do that right now.
Absolutely. And I can make a few more ending comments, and if anybody, I see Cammie's hand now.
Well, I just had to say something. And first of all, thank you for being here. Second of all, what I've really appreciated about you is the transparency throughout this entire process. You've done a really great job of updating the community and just, letting us know where you're at. I just want to tell you what a great job you're doing. I'm really proud of you.
Oh, thank you. In response to your comment, Cammie, I will say that I could not have done this without the amazing staff that we have at the houses. It's really, they've been asked to step up continuously for the last 2 years. And even in the face of losing their jobs, they've stepped up even further for our residents, which is just really great. Sort of in closing, I also want to provide an update that before the care board came to this decision, and then even after, once news got out, we were looking for other operators and owners of long-term care facilities to potentially come in and take over the facilities. To date, we have talked with 17 owners and operators of long-term care facilities, so this includes assisted living and memory care. All 17 of them have said that they are not willing to purchase the facilities or even take on the mortgages and just assume the business. So yeah, that was a lot of them. Ooh, and Aaron's hand now.
Yeah, I just wanted to throw in a quick thought. We have struggled for a long time with these buildings to keep them financially viable. And, we talked about how it was a Medicaid-dominated population. And there's two pieces to that I think are important. One is, of course, that it fits CARE's mission. But I think the other thing that's important, and for the reason that other operators are really not willing to come in and try to make a go of it, is that is the population in Tillamook County that needs assisted living. When we look across the spectrum, we do have a lot of folks who move here to retire who have resources. And those folks typically, when they need additional care and support, either bring in home care or they go ahead and move back to the areas they came from to be near family or medical teams, as many of the people have done at this point. But we at times during the history of the assisted livings attempted to leave spaces open specifically for private pay to try to shift the model, and determined that just led to empty rooms. So I think it's important when we think about, because there have certainly been conversations in the community about, why didn't you just take more private pay? I mean, I know it's your mission, but still, and the answer is because there's a very limited pool of folks here for private pay. So I think that also speaks to why the 17 operators all said, we see what you were doing, we see why you were doing it, and we can't do anything different. So it's a really tough time, and I certainly give Peter and the care board a lot of kudos for how they have handled this. This has been exceedingly difficult, something no one wanted to have happen, and you all have grappled with the tough issues, made the tough choices, and are carrying everything forward. So my greatest thanks to all of you.
Thank you, Commissioner Skar. And sort of in closing, this has obviously been a very difficult process for everyone, in particular our residents. Often as we age and in the long-term care, wider professional community, you'll hear that the number one most difficult thing is finding staff. The second most difficult thing is ensuring that our seniors feel connected to their community. And our residents are really great people. I know that many of the staff and myself have come to see them as extensions of our own family. And it has been really difficult for our residents, for our staff, and then those of you who also know residents in these communities. And I would just ask that you not forget them, even if they've moved out of the county, that you keep in touch with them. It can mean the world to one of our residents just to receive a letter saying, hi, I'm still thinking of you. And I know that all of you are here sort of surrounding housing, and this is a housing-related issue. It's housing for our seniors that can no longer care for themselves in their own home. And if you're truly concerned about the state of senior care in our community, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to your elected representatives, both in Salem and Washington, D.C. Because this is, I've just been saying it, when we've heard about the collapse of the healthcare system over the last year, this is how it starts. It starts in our rural communities, and it starts with our poor. And we may be one of the first to succumb to the effects of COVID and just delayed increases in the Medicaid reimbursement. But I don't think that we're going to be the last. And I don't think that it's going to be long before we see those effects more widely across our state and country.
Okay, we have two more quick comments, and then we need to move along. We could spend our whole meeting on this, I'm sure. Okay, Chris?
Hey, Peter, I just wanted to tell you that I've been thinking about you, and that in early December we caroled, Rotary caroled at Kilch's house, as well as Prestige. And when I left Kilch's house, it had filled my bucket. And so the staff there and the residents, you were right on. I had no idea that the Medicaid population was so large there. And so I will be contacting my representative. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Chris.
Yeah, I just want to make a quick comment. It's not really about housing or care or the facilities, but there is a village movement across the United States and the world it's not about helping people stay in a facility, but to help people stay in their own homes as they age. It's a volunteer member model. And there's a small group in North County that's been trying to get a village going here, and we've been spinning our wheels because of COVID and also because of lack of help to get it going. So, and then the other organization that's been active lately that I'm aware of is, I think it's called Age Plus. So there are other ways to help our seniors besides, of which I'm one. So just want to make a plug for both of those things, the Village Movement and Age Plus.
Okay, Peter, thank you very much for taking the time with us tonight. This has been very helpful, I think, for all of us. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for the time.
Well, our next agenda item is something I'm kind of excited about. TJ will fill us in on the new Finance Committee.
I was quicker to the unmute this time, too. I'm getting used to this Teams platform. Good morning, everybody. As we discussed last month and voted to form a new Finance Committee, I went ahead and did my homework and made some amendments that I would like for you all to see. These are things that we will be adding to the bylaws, and the Finance Committee will be a standing committee. And we have some members also to share who those people will be and what exactly they'll be doing over the next several months and into the future as we bring in money for the Housing Commission, and then we also think about how we're going to allocate those dollars to housing projects. I have a brief presentation that I'm going to go ahead and share. Give me one moment here.
Barbara, did you have a quick comment? I see your hands up.
Oh, I think Barbara just had her hand up still from when her last comment on the previous conversation. Yep. Is that right? Got it. Okay, it's down. Can folks see my screen here? Wonderful. So we have a number of folks who have stepped up with some strong background in grant writing, as well in looking at financial applications and qualifying them. Our members for the Finance Committee will be myself as staff, Sarah Absher, Director of Community Development as staff, Chris Lackenmeyer, Kristen Koptiuk, Ms. Carlson Swanson, Ed Gallagher, and Bill Bartline. And let me talk a little bit about, once again, the function of this committee. If I can get my screen to advance. There we go. The purpose will be twofold. The first purpose of the Finance Committee is, first off, it's a standing committee that will be focusing on grant development. So identifying grant opportunities that will be recommended as applications that we can submit for housing projects. And the second function of the Finance Committee will be looking at the scoring for each application that comes in for the Housing Grant Fund, so that there is an in-depth and focused analysis of each applicant and the project that is done by a specific committee, and this is their function. And then they bring those recommendations to the Housing Commission, when the Housing Commission is going to actually determine which projects will be selected to receive funding through the Housing Grant Fund. So here's a little bit about that first piece, grant development. The Finance Committee will work to seek and review potential grant-seeking opportunities. They will assess the costs and benefits of applying to any given opportunity that seems of interest. And some of the factors that they're going to think about when deciding to recommend a grant to move forward or not would be the application deadline, the expected time commitment that would be required to write the grant and submit it, the amount of the award, as well as what the post-award reporting requirements would include. Those of you who have been involved in grant processes before, I think sometimes it can be surprising if you get a grant and you say, wait a minute, we're supposed to do what? Right? So we want to make sure that there's somebody thinking about that before we recommend the next step to the Housing Commission. Once all of the grant opportunities that are on the table and opportunities that we're thinking about have been gone through and we've actually made some decisions, we'll recommend strategic actions to the full Housing Commission on which grants we should apply for and which grants we should recommend to move forward. And then we'll also guide and support the successful submission of those grants. So commissioners on this committee will help to write those grants, will help to think through timelines and how we're going to craft the budget in the narrative and the submission that we send to whatever agency or to whatever foundation that we're applying to. And at the end of the year, this committee will provide a brief report, it'll prepare a brief report that talks about all of the grants that were submitted and hopefully those ones that are awarded at the end of each year to keep the Housing Commission informed about what is going on, and most importantly, to inform the Board of County Commissioners about the good work that we're doing. I want to provide a quick flow chart for you so it's crystal clear on how this committee functions and its role. So the Finance Committee, you can see, will look for housing dollars. It will make recommendations for those housing dollar applications to the Housing Commission. Any grant that we recommend writing and submitting must go through the Board of County Commissioners. And so the Housing Commission will forward all recommendations to the Board of County Commissioners. And once that has been done and the process is completed, community development will work to craft that grant and prepare the application and get the team on board from the Finance Committee to move things forward in the timeline that they outlined in the previous process. What do we do with some of the money that we have available? Currently, there's a fund that is growing that allows us to provide subsidies to housing projects that have a public good element. In addition to that, if we're successful in receiving grant funds, that can add to that dollar amount. We want to make sure that we're spending those dollars responsibly and judiciously. So grant fund awards will be submitted through the grant fund application process on a quarterly basis. One of the things that the Finance Committee will do is complete the process of identifying the quantifiable criteria and metrics used to assess housing grant fund applications. We will conduct a quantifiable assessment of all applications based on the criteria and metrics that we define. We'll review and assess the transparency, authenticity, and track record of applicants. And we will report all metrics for each submission at the end of each housing grant fund cycle for the Housing Commission to then listen to the 5-minute presentations from each one of the applicants before making their final recommendations based on that presentation, what they view is most important, and the quantitative data that has been provided by the Finance Committee. And also, the Finance Committee will prepare an annual report of all housing grant fund awards that were made throughout a year so that there is a summary analysis each year moving forward. This will be shared, of course, with the Housing Commission, and this will also be information that the Board of County Commissioners has so that they know everything that's going on in real time as well as in batch form at the end of the year. A very quick flow chart of how that would work. Down at the bottom left-hand corner, Community Development prepares a quarterly application process. Applicants apply. They send those applications to the Housing Commission. In fact, it'll go directly to the Finance Committee first. The Finance Committee will complete its quantitative assessment and then send those recommendations of all the quantifiable metrics and criteria for the Housing Commission to review prior to the 5-minute presentations by each applicant. Following that process and the recommendations for each of the applicants at the end of each cycle, they'll send that information to the Tillamook County Board of County Commissioners, who will then make a determination on which grants will move forward, the specific terms, dollar amounts, and timeframes of those grants based on the recommendations and the quantifiable assessment that was done by the Finance Committee. And they will establish final terms of the deal with the project applicant. Once the project applicant receives those funds, Community Development will continue to work with the project applicant moving forward to ensure that they are complying with the terms of their grant award and that they are also keeping in touch with us about what their project looks like and how it's moving along, as well as in construction. We'll move to that next step in just a moment. That is the end of this presentation. I wanted to ask, before I stop sharing my screen, are there any questions about either one of those functions, either the taking in of money or the allocating of money?
I think you've given a pretty thorough view of how it's supposed to work, so I think it looks good from my perspective. Barbara has a question.
I'm just curious as to where the group is in reviewing the work that was started on the qualifications.
Yes, thank you so much, Barbara. So we had a working group that had formed and carried forward a great deal of work that had come out of 2020 and 2021. We have moved that ahead, and I've done a good amount of work getting us to where we are now, answering some of the questions that were still outstanding in that process, and that will be carried forward by the Finance Committee, and this is part of the assessment of the criteria and the metrics that will be used to quantify each of the applicants, and we expect that application process to begin in probably around Q2 of this year. So that's being carried forward by the Finance Committee.
And I presume that'll come back to the full commission for final review.
Yes, absolutely. Like everything else that this committee will be doing, it'll go to the full commission for review and, as necessary, forward information to the Board of County Commissioners for their oversight.
Super. Any more questions on this for TJ? Kristen has a comment, sorry.
I'm just wondering, what's the relationship between this committee's fund acquisition and the short-term rental funds that are being collected?
So
is that part of the same pool?
Yes. So the line items of revenue coming in are currently just the short-term revenue funds. However, this group would like to identify grant funding opportunities to increase that dollar amount, and there are other federal opportunities that may be providing some additional resources. So there's room for this fund to grow from multiple different line items.
Okay, all good. I know the commission really appreciates the people that have stepped up to be on this commission and work with it. It's going to be some good work, and former Commissioner Bartline is going to participate as a non-commissioned member, which is covered in our bylaws, and appreciate his willingness to help on this as well. Okay, TJ, I think you're on again to talk about the executive committee idea.
Yes, thank you, Ed. So I'd like to present the idea and have a brief discussion about an executive committee. The idea here is to have a single group that can meet to discuss high-level business issues and help to move forward the business of the Housing Commission when we meet on a monthly basis. The executive committee would include the chairs of all of the committees, the chair of the commission, as well as myself and Sarah Absher and Commissioner Scar, all who have staff roles from the county. And the idea is to make sure that we are kept informed about everything that is going on within the Housing Commission, that we recommend changes to bylaws, to policies or procedures as necessary to present to the Housing Commission for approval, and that we're also thinking through any issues that may come up between Housing Commission meetings that have to be addressed before the Housing Commission meeting actually occurs. We haven't seen that happen yet, but as we know, we're growing quickly, and this is a good problem to have. Growth is good, but we also need a body that is able to address high-level concerns before we get to each monthly meeting so that they're addressed in real time. So those are some of the ideas around what an executive committee would do, and at the next Housing Commission meeting, I will prepare a presentation very similar to what I did today for the Finance Committee to discuss, again, who will be on it and their specific roles and functions. At that time, I will be asking I'll be asking Ed as the chair to entertain a vote for commissioners to form the standing executive committee based on the bylaws and the recommendations that I will prepare. So with that, are there any questions about the intent of this? Any concerns or thoughts that folks would like to share as we go into the next month and begin to prepare the work?
I guess not, TJ. It's good. I think it's given the scale of our organization and how quickly we've grown and we have money and all those things. I think it does make sense to have an executive committee, but we'll talk about it next meeting, right?
Yes, I wanted to introduce it today and make sure that folks understood what we're doing, and in case they had any questions, they could ask them. Please, in the interim between this meeting and next, feel free to email me directly with any thoughts or ideas that come up after the meeting if you have them.
Okay. You're on again, social media policy, the work that you've done on it so far. You introduced the topic earlier, and you've done some more work on it.
I have. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. I have a brief slide that I'd like to share with folks. I'll also note that the social media policy exists in text form. It's in a document. And that document will be folded into a larger source of resources that you all will have very, very soon. So we are developing a code of conduct, and the social media policy will be part of that code of conduct. And those documents, as well as several other guiding principles, will be part of a commissioner handbook that you will all receive. So we're actually preparing physical books, physical binders, where we can add information and send you new information as bylaws change. That's one of the documents that will be in there, bylaws, social media policy, as well as the code of conduct and a number of other issues or ideas that we're trying to present to the Housing Commission in written form. If there are resources that you wish that you had, or things that you feel would be appropriate to include in a commissioner handbook, I'm very interested to hear from you about what those are. So feel free to email me about that. Today I want to talk to you about the high-level items that are in the social media policy and the intent of it. So the idea is to really convey to housing commissioners that just like any other public body, your actions may have an impact on your images, as well as the image of the Tillamook Housing Commission and the Board of County Commissioners by extension. The social media policy asks that commissioners use your best judgment in posting material that is neither inappropriate or harmful to the Board of County Commissioners, the Tillamook County Housing Commission, or to members of the community. Commissioners are asked not to publish, post, or release any information that is considered confidential or not public. And if there are ever any questions about what is considered confidential, commissioners should check in with Tillamook County Department of Community Development staff. That could be either myself or Director Absher, who could provide guidance on what is most appropriate. If commissioners publish content that involves work or subjects associated with the Tillamook County Housing Commission, and it did not come directly from the Public Education and Outreach Committee, then it is recommended that commissioners use a disclaimer, something along the lines of "this posting are my own words and may not represent Tillamook County Housing Commission's positions, strategies, or opinions." And of course, this is all by your own discretion, and I would only return to the original comments or the original statement that when your actions could have an impact on your image, it's really just the perception that somebody may have that can create concerns. It doesn't necessarily have to be the reality. So use your discretion, and I would strongly recommend prefacing any comments that haven't gone through the social or the Public Media and Outreach Committee about postings that are yours, and just having that disclaimer included. Again, I'll be sharing this document with you all. It'll be part of your handbook, and I wanted to ask if there were any questions or concerns about this topic.
You know, I just might mention that this refers to postings, but it also kind of gives some guidance in just general conversations that you may have with people. I try to be careful to not say things that I don't think the commission has already agreed to, but my own opinion. So, you know, I often say, in my opinion, blah, blah, blah. So it's kind of a guide as well for just general interactions with the community.
Yeah, thank you for that, Ed. And part of the reason for having a larger code of conduct does go beyond just social media. We want to provide you some comfort and guidance on how you should communicate with folks in the community so that when you do so, you know you're on solid footing. Other questions or concerns or comments?
Okay, so you're coming back to finalize this maybe at the next meeting?
In March, you all should have, if you haven't received it by then, you'll shortly be receiving your binder that includes all of the documents that we'll be including the code of conduct within that commissioner handbook. And again, between now and March, if you'd like to see some resource that hasn't been discussed or that you would like to have, please feel free to email me about that and we'll work on getting that included. So yes, Ed, at the next meeting, you all should have what those documents are and clarity on what they say.
Right, that's right. Well, you can see TJ's been pretty busy this last month. And he has one more thing to talk about that he's also worked on, and that's the employer survey.
Yes, thank you, Ed. I wanted to pull this out, and I know that we're going to have a public education and outreach update here in just a few minutes. But the thing that we're doing is we're going to be relaunching the employer survey. This was actually one of the central themes in one of the most recent articles about the Sand Dune Pub. And it's important to note that we only had about 85 responses, and they weren't geographically dispersed around the county. They were really centralized in areas that were a bit surprising for some of us. So this last article was an opportunity to sort of ring the bell for the business community and say, by the way, we're going to be relaunching this survey. And we're going to be including some questions that maybe weren't included before that would help us get to the root of some of the concerns and issues specific to employers and their employees and the struggles that they're having. So I wanted to take this opportunity to publicly state for the Housing Commission and anybody out there in the public listening that this survey will be coming out in the next month or two, and that we will make it very publicized, and that we'd like your support in making sure that it gets out to our business community so that we can get the greatest possible feedback that we can from any of the businesses that have taken it or possibly haven't.
Would the survey include comments directly from employees of those businesses?
At present, it doesn't, Ed, but thank you for asking that. One of the things we'll be doing following the employer survey is a general survey for multiple different stakeholders in the community that will include our workforce. That will include folks who are facing their own struggles with housing and how that actually interfaces with their jobs, the distance they drive, the amount of money that they have to spend on housing. So these two surveys together are going to give us a very clear view of both the employer and the employee's perspective. Oh, you're muted, Ed.
Any other questions on this one? Oh, Kristen.
I just wanted to note, in case people are wondering how many people responded to the survey that we did send out a couple months ago. We got about 85 responses, but there are several hundred businesses in the county. So clearly not enough people responded.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe we'll get a better shot this next time. Let's see. I was just noticing from those of you that have Valerie on your screen, that was not a dragon or something going across your screen. That's her cat, who occasionally walks across the screen.
Ed?
Yeah.
This last month, TJ and I worked with Leanne, the city manager of Bay City. She contacted me about an item on their council meeting that night, and TJ was able to go by and drop off that number of copies for the council of the AARP information about ADUs, and actually is now on their agenda for next month. It seems with the employer and surveys, it's a good way for us to connect with communities too as we get on their agendas. And I know TJ can speak to this, but Leanne Welch was so pleased to be able to be topical going into that meeting tonight, because I sent some, connected her with TJ, and TJ made a real impact when he met her, able to bring by materials. And I know we've spoken about it, but how great to get it. And I know we've been to some city council meetings, but to enlist their help in getting to employers sounds like something they would take on. And thanks for acknowledging my cat, Vida. Appreciate it.
Yeah, and TJ and I met with the somewhat new city manager in Rockaway, which we had a real good conversation. I appreciate the outreach that he's initiated on that.
Absolutely. Ed, I wanted to, Ed, really quickly, I wanted to address a question, a very good question here. Are we doing anything with the first survey results? So in my second meeting, in November, I believe it was, I presented the general statistics to this commission that came from the housing survey. What I'd like to do is, before we relaunch the employer survey, we're probably going to do a little bit of outreach for the public on what those results were, and that'll help us inform why it is that we're sending out the survey again. So yes, there is an intent to take those survey results, present them, but then really emphasize and focus on the fact that we're relaunching with the intent to get a broader group of people responding and some more targeted questions about the issues.
Okay, good. Gail, I see you up there in the corner of the screen, my screen. You want to talk about the Development Code Subcommittee, please?
I would be happy to. Let's see how well I can talk yet. First of all, I want to thank TJ and Valerie for good networking on that, and put it out there that I have a whole box also of the AARP ABCs of ADUs publication, which is excellent. And if anybody has an application for those, it would be great to get them out there. And since I've got those, which are free for the asking from AARP, they've come out with a new updated version that is even better than that one. So while that one is excellent to put out there, there's a new one coming on too. So just wanted to say that so everybody knows we have that paper resource. Development Code, in addition to working on refining questions for the survey, the Development Code's been working on questions for developers, which is a different sort of survey in that we plan on contacting developers directly, not mailing something out, but actually getting to talk to them. What we're focusing on with those questions is our intent of the questions that we ask them, which all pretty much comes back to informing ultimate recommendations on code changes that will help promote workforce missing middle housing in Tillamook County. In mind that anything that we recommend, and that's part of our work on the Development Code too, has to be in concert with state policies, with Goal 10 stuff, that the county is not at liberty to just make changes, even though we might desperately want to make those changes. If it doesn't match with state rules, then we can't do it. Those are our limitations. We also, have talked about going over our terms to make sure, again, that our definitions are common and clear, so that when we say workforce housing to a developer, we've already told them what we mean by that, not just throw the term out there and assume that we both understand the same things. TJ, do you have anything to add for Development Code?
I think the one thing I'll add is this is a wonderful opportunity, our outreach to developers. It's a wonderful opportunity for collaboration between the Development Code Subcommittee and the Public Education and Outreach Subcommittee. So the questions that we are developing through Development Code will filter through Public Education and Outreach. So number one, they're well aware of what's going on. They can comment on some of the verbiage that we're using, and they can make sure that they're prepared to publicize the results of that once it's complete.
Thank you. That is an important component of it. And once again, speaks to the always overlap between Development Code and Outreach Committee. Are there any questions on Development Code things at this point? Oh, Daniel.
Yeah, I have a question. And this may be something you guys have covered before. This is my first time participating in this meeting. But I wanted to bring up the idea of system development charges and water connection fees and sewer connection fees. Kind of what I'm seeing here in Rockaway Beach is that they have a one water meter, one dwelling policy. Whereas in Tillamook, you can have up to 4 units on one water meter. So the charges are significant. For example, if you want to connect a fourplex in Tillamook, it's about $7,000 or $8,000. That same fourplex built in Rockaway is $41,000. These are development charges. So these are fees that we're paying the city. And it just seems to me like if we're trying to encourage more housing, a good place to start would be to try to maybe reduce some of the fees or some of the policies so the city can kind of encourage more housing development.
Daniel, thank you for that. And yes, that is certainly something that is on our radar and has been on our radar. The whole topic of system development fees, system development charges, SDCs, is complicated by the fact that, as you say, different jurisdictions have different fees and different policies associated with that fees. We have to be very careful and very politic going forward, making any educational outreach. I'm sorry, my brains don't work very well. Making any outreach to the cities. We don't have the right, the county does not have the right to tell the cities how to administer their own domains. And that's a fact, just like it's a fact that the county has to comply with state regulations. But be advised that we are working on that it is a topic that there's some room for improvement in, and that is something that has come up. Does anybody have anything more coherent to add to that? I'm sorry, my brains are still COVID present.
I see Commissioner Scar has a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to address that, Daniel. Thank you for bringing it up. And for as long as we've been having housing conversations, that's been a topic. And I think Gail did a great job of addressing why we have to be somewhat cautious about how we move forward with it. What we have talked about and what is in our grant framework is the idea that perhaps some of the funds that we raise would help to cover those system development charges. That the small districts and the cities that we have that set those because they need that money in order for their systems to work. We will certainly continue the conversations with them, and I know in Garibaldi they did a great job of allowing those fees to be paid over a period of years rather than requiring them up front for some of the development there. And we will be encouraging our districts and so forth to look at that. But a solid thing that we have put into our framework that we can do is to allow people to apply for support in paying them, and we can help pay system development charges. So we're coming at it from a couple different ways.
Good. Thank you.
Okay. Any last minute questions for Gail? Good. Okay. Carrie is going to talk about anything going on in the legislature, what's coming up.
Yeah, the legislative session for 2022, it's a short session. It just started here on Tuesday, February 1st. There are about 10 bills that I identified and that were pre-session filed that our group will be reviewing, probably getting kicked back going here in the next couple weeks, because there's already bills being assigned to both the House Committee on Housing and the Senate Committee on Housing and Development. Just to highlight a few that probably will be something that we want to track or at least look into is expanding it's House Bill 4118. It allows cities to expand the urban growth boundary in order to include land designated for workforce housing, as well as commercial development. And that was brought, main supporter was Representative Zika. And there's several, there's one House Bill 4043 that is relating to housing credits, getting income tax credits for purchasing public supported housing to retain housing stocks. So there are some ones that we want to definitely look at and follow. So we will be getting going again. through this short session and look forward to reporting back. I did send TJ just the preliminary workbook that we started. The agenda on there hasn't been updated, just a template at this point, as well as links to both work groups within the legislature. So you can make that'll be available to be shared at some point. And that's about all I have.
Okay, any questions of Carrie? I know from your work on the last sessions, I think we probably have the most detailed and confident review of legislation of probably any organization in the state, maybe, definitely not in North County. So appreciate your work on that, Carrie. You do a super job. I see a lot of nodding, yes, we all agree. Barbara, you had a question?
Yeah, Carrie, what was the number of the bill that would allow cities to expand the UGB for workforce housing?
Yes, that is, just looking down my list here. It is House Bill 4118.
Thank you.
And Commissioner Scar?
Yeah, I was going to highlight another bill that is in the legislature, House Bill 4123. It relates to homeless service coordination, and Tillamook County is one of 8 counties called out in that bill specifically to get $1 million over 2 years for homeless services coordination, and any amount of money that is not needed for the coordination process can actually be used for homeless services. So just kind of to have that on everyone's radar. It is a coordinated bill that has the cities and the county together in it. So it's currently being shepherded by the Association of Oregon Counties and the League of Oregon Cities. We don't know how likely it is that we'll make it through. Short sessions happen very fast. I believe that this session is a maximum of 35 days. So these bills will be moving very quickly. So we should know pretty soon whether this will make it out of committee or not. But it's just one to keep an eye on, because it'd be a pretty amazing opportunity for Tillamook County to do some significant planning around housing for those experiencing homelessness, which can include permanent supportive housing, transitional housing, low-income housing. It would be a very significant crossover with planning work for this commission as well. So fingers crossed.
And thank you for bringing that up, Erin, because there was something similar, House Bill 4063. I don't know if the co-development committee, this might be interest to them. It was at the request of the House Interim Committee on Housing for the Oregon Home Builders Association, and they are looking at a pilot study concerning administrative processes and procedures used in approving residential construction projects. So I don't know if Sarah Absher at the Community Development Department may be interested in working with them to get that process. It might be able to, from what I read, it's trying to simplify and streamline internal processes to where projects aren't held for months at a time, especially when it's simple residential construction.
I'm going to go out of order here a little bit. I think Sarah probably has a comment on it. Sarah Absher.
Hi, everyone. Good morning. Carrie, thank you so much for bringing that up. Yes, there's actually, I'm also part of a larger discussion as well that's looking at that and tools and resources that can be provided to rural jurisdictions from the Building Codes Division. This is a great first step in a partnership with the home builders to look at processes, and then moving forward and working with the director of the Building Codes Division. I believe there's possibly going to be an opportunity for a work group to be involved, created to talk more about not only this issue, but then also what do jurisdictions need to actually help make sure that those programs run and function smoothly. So yes, that is on my radar. And I do have one more. So this afternoon, in my role in AOCPD, which is the Association of Oregon County Planning Directors, myself and a few others will be attending the hearing today, this afternoon, for Senate Bill 1533, which is the fix to the rural residential ADU bill. And so we're not anticipating on having to testify because it should go through quite smoothly. AOC's been working on this, Mallory specifically from AOC, and we've been supporting her in that and providing feedback. But that'll also be another one, boy, we can check off our list. So I'll have an update, Carrie. I will share that with you and TJ moving forward. But yeah, quietly in the background, yes, I am working on a few of these things too to help support all of your efforts, and I really appreciate all the great work everybody's doing.
Daniel, did you have an additional comment? Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks. I just, especially with the short session, it's probably going to be even more difficult. But I think one of the things that I would like to do, I think public testimony goes a long way in these situations, and having some draft talking points and position statements prepared, maybe even some templates that we can really quickly modify for different types of legislation that then could be submitted not just from the Housing Commission itself, but from organizations like mine. I serve on our Public Affairs Council, and workforce housing is a key priority. So, of our organization, and we, federal and state level advocacy. So, I'm encouraged by my organization to do that, but I don't have a lot of bandwidth to come up with the language to put together something in a timely manner for an opportunity for any advocacy. So, if we could somehow build that into the process so that we have pretty quick turnaround of capabilities, I think that would be super helpful.
Okay, well, thank you, Carrie, and appreciate you keeping us informed. Gail, you have outreach to talk about?
I do. The outreach committee is continuing on with our outreach campaign and continuing to research and write articles that go along with our What's the Story series. We hope you all are keeping up with those and seeing them out there. We're getting lots of feedback on them, and that's been a really good thing. While we continue to work on that, we are making sure that the outreach that we do fits into an outreach framework that we already set up. And that so that there is some strategic plan. So we're not just putting out the next article that we can complete, but so that we have an educational plan, if you will, and a strategic plan so that the information that we put out coordinates with these articles and also with other articles that we hope to do that are sort of, what do I want to say, less stories and more just factual news releases, briefer stories and news releases that will be timely to match with the stories we're putting out and also to match with our long-term strategy. TJ's working on a kind of background framework, a logic model to fit all of this work into. The outreach committee already developed a framework quite a while back. So we're making sure that those match. Help me out, guys. Brains are mush. Does anybody want to say anything or add anything to that for the outreach committee?
Gail, I'd encourage anybody from the outreach committee to comment. I had a very, very brief something I wanted to just refresh for everybody's minds. So while the Outreach Committee is the one publishing articles, there are opportunities for all commissioners to partner with the Outreach Committee and write articles if you have a connection directly to somebody who has a topic that is of interest. And we'd like to encourage that. The second thing, and I'm going to share a link here in the chat, and please also note that this information will be a part of your handbook. I'm going to share this link, but then I'm also going to share my screen again so you can see what I'm talking about. Give me 1 second here. If you have social media post ideas, and a quick thumb up from anybody or just a verbal confirmation, can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yep.
So if you have social media post ideas, maybe you read a very valuable article from Pew, or you have something in the community you've heard about that would make a good social media post, all you have to do is fill out this form, provide your email address, select your name from the drop-down, and every single commissioner, including staff, is in this drop-down list. Tell us which platform you'd like that post to be added to. Facebook's the only one right now, but Twitter and LinkedIn will be coming in the future. Tell us the audiences that you think that particular post would be most targeted towards. Give us a title of the topic. What does the topic relate to, as far as all of the different things that we're focused on in the Housing Commission? And then even there's an opportunity for you to wordsmith a little bit and provide us your recommended body text for that social media post. If you have some images that you've taken yourself or located in an article or you think would be valuable to include on that post, you can simply add the image right from your computer here. And then tell us what date you would like for that to be posted. And we will receive that in our project management software tool that we use to coordinate with one another and decide exactly when that should go out and collaborate with you if necessary, if there might be any changes. So I wanted to just very quickly share that there are opportunities for you to engage with the Public Education and Outreach Committee, and we encourage it.
Okay, I saw Barbara.
Yeah, a couple of things. TJ, on that link that you just provided, what about our housing website page?
So the housing
Can
website...
that be added, or how do we suggest things to go on our website?
That I would recommend that you have a conversation with me or email me directly. The Housing Commission website is a little bit different than what we have out there with social media. It is controlled very closely and for very good reason by county staff. And so that would be a filter that we need to apply. If you have some recommendations or suggestions for that, please send them to me directly. If necessary, I'll discuss them with Director Absher and or Commissioner Scar.
Thank you, TJ. And then regarding some next steps for the Outreach Committee, TJ's working on, we're working on the terms, definitions, and I see Chris put in the chat that that's a good thing to be in the handbook, which is excellent, Chris. Thank you. And TJ was also going to present to our group at our next meeting or in the near future, kind of a one-pager. I'm not exactly sure what's going to be on that. Maybe TJ, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Absolutely. So in addition to terms, I'm going to be providing some infographics that'll help inform the Public Education and Outreach Committee itself on what we're talking about, income limits and different types of factors that I think are very important. And then that one-pager will allow us to communicate that information to the Housing Commission and to the public in general.
One of the issues that came up at an earlier committee meeting was whether we should try to do an executive summary of our housing study that's more detailed than we've done to date. I think the material we have is great. It helps me to explain things to people when they ask, but maybe a bit more detailed executive summary, something that can be handed out to city councils, for example. I think they would appreciate that type of information. It needs to be fairly short. My experience of working in the public sector, it has to be pretty short or people aren't going to read, very lengthy, but something more akin to a typical executive summary would be helpful if the Outreach Committee could take that on.
We did in the very beginning of our group take a stab at doing that. And we've got several versions. We haven't looked at it in a while, but thank you, Ed. That's a good reminder. Maybe we could bring that back out and then get it back to the Housing Commission as a group as well.
Well, no offense to Commissioner Scar. I know you would read a lengthy document, but some people don't.
And one of the things that Director Absher and I had worked on for part of our Goal 10 updates was a 2-page brief executive summary that I prepared for that document. That's something that we could use and craft for a public audience, change some of the verbiage and include some graphics that I think would help guide the reader. But we do already have something that's pretty well prepared and kind of ready to go here in the near future.
Great, super. Commissioner Scar, I think you're next for any updates you want to provide.
Oh, well, I sort of jumped in with House Bill 4123 during that conversation. And I don't know that I have anything else super exciting going on for us. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I'm sure that actually the ARPA money is probably a question. And I think I've said many times the wheels of government turn slowly. And we are in the process of evaluating all of the requests that we received as we sort of went through and looked for duplicates and corrections and so forth. I think we've whittled it down so that there are 108 requests, and I think that it's somewhere around $40 million, and we have 5. So we will be doing the work now to try to pare that down and determine what are the highest priorities and where we can hope to fund. So stay tuned. We're sitting here February 3rd. If we were awarding anything by March, I would be amazed. So just know that it takes some time, but we are starting to sift through those and add some priority to them. So if there are any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. You must be doing everything right. Nobody has any questions. This is all going perfectly. Okay, I think we're near the end of the meeting. We're a bit early too, which is kind of nice. People have some time to do something else. Any public comments from the public or from commissioners that want to express something?
I just want to, oh, sorry, I should have raised my hand. Bad manners. I just want to thank Sarah for all her work on the Oceanside process. We had the hearing yesterday, but I just want to give a quick shout out to her and all the work she did for that process.
Michelle?
Yeah, I just want to let people know that there is going to be a ballot measure for community, which will be seeking funding education program building on its campus here in Tillamook to house a healthcare workforce education program that would encompass nurses, CNAs, MAs, medical assistants, EMTs, phlebotomists, lab techs, with a full simulation laboratory, including an ambulance simulator. So it's a really big deal, and because it's tied to housing, because one of the challenges, as we know, is if people already live here, then we stand a pretty good chance of being able to get them to work here. And if we have positions that people aren't qualified for, that we have to bring them in from out of the area, we don't have housing for them, it's much more difficult to recruit those positions. So I'm on that YES committee, as is Eric Swanson, and I will be sharing out information about it. And I just want you to keep your eyes open. It's the May ballot. It's February. It's going to happen really fast. And I don't want to be inappropriate in terms of asking a county entity with appointed members, so I guess this is probably going to be something that would be a personal ask, not a commissioner ask, but I do think it's tied to the commission's objectives, and maybe if anybody wants to get involved, maybe reach out to me privately and I'll help you get connected to the YES committee.
You might have noted that the Tillamook Bay Community College is doing a strategic plan update, and there were some people that were getting it, soliciting information. I think they had a consultant helping them with it. And I was asked my ideas, and of course, thinking of housing all the time. I didn't say the Housing Commission's idea, but I said it was my personal idea that they should maybe do an evaluation of whether student housing would make sense, like the larger universities have at the community college level. So I don't know if they'll do anything, but I thought that was something that'd be interesting to see what the demand would be for student housing on their property.
Hey Ed, this is Cammie. I'm glad you said that because one of the suggestions I made to Peter was how great would it be to use Kilch's house for student housing that's right across the street from the community college. I just think that'd be so cool, but that was just an idea. So yay!
Maybe get legislative funding for it. That would be good. Okay, anything else? Well, thank you all. Another good meeting. We're getting, oh, Gail, did you have something?
I just wanted to thank all of the non-committee members who took the time and trouble and energy to attend these meetings. We really appreciate your interest and involvement and your questions.
Absolutely. Yep. It'll be nice when we can meet in person again and see all those faces out there. It'll be good. Well, thank you all, and have a good rest of the week. Take care.
Can I sit in on this too? Do you guys mind?
Absolutely.
So I tried to blur my